help you absolutely work on your NLP skills. When Richard Bandler talks about learning the meta model, people will say to Richard, how on earth do you learn to use the meta model really fluently, really elegantly? And Richard will say, write each language pattern down at least 200 times. Now, I don't know who of you have already done that. If you have, put up a yes and let's see. I did. This was how I got to know how to use the meta model. So when you generate your own examples time and time again, it's not so that it's an exercise in writing, it's an exercise in allowing your unconscious to really start to get the pattern of the meta model automatically, so that you're able to automatically, you're not even consciously thinking about it, you're able to automatically pick up the information. So this part is part 2 of the meta model, and part 2 is the deletions and generalizations. Part 1 was the last masterclass we did. If you didn't attend part 1, I know, chicks, I don't think you and Ozea, you were on the last one, but if you didn't attend before, please get in touch with me and I will send you a copy of the link. The first part of the meta model was about distortions, and now I'm putting the other 2 parts together, the deletions and generalizations. I'm just going to run over every time I do these masterclasses. I really believe it's important to just remind yourself as to what the meta model is. I don't think you can go over this often enough. My definition is that it's a methodology for retrieving information that has been deleted, distorted, and generalized. So it's basically, according to Richard Bandler, this is a tool that helps people make their map of the world richer. And the more rich your map of the world is, the more choices that you have. So it helps people become unstuck. It helps people move on. It helps people become motivated. It helps people take personal responsibility, especially in business, for the different choices they're going to have. So it's used to retrieve information that has been deleted, distorted, and generalized. Meta model is divided into 3 sections: the distortions, which is 5 language patterns, the deletions, 4 language patterns, generalization, 3 language patterns, and each of these language patterns can be challenged by using specific questions to retrieve information that has been deleted, distorted, and generalized. Now, those of you who use the meta model, you understand that when you ask a meta model question, what this causes people to do is it causes people to go into a trans-derivational search. Now, chicks, you may or may not know that term, but the trans-derivational search is when someone has to search inside their brain through their visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory parts, if you like, to find that information. And you see that's happening by people's eye access. You'll see the eyes moving to different places as they're accessing different parts of the brain to retrieve the information. This is the power about meta model, is that no one can answer a meta model question flippantly. Someone has really got to think about it. So to create oh, you'll like this, Annette. Sorry, there's a space. Annette loves everything to be perfect. So there's a wee space missing in creating a map of the world. So to create your map of the world, you're deleting, distorting, generalizing your information. Now, recently I read in a book, now, what I love about statistics is statistics are only valid for when they're written. And I have seen so many different statistics on the amount of information we process over the years. The latest piece of information I have seen is that it is 40 billion bits of information a second. Now, I don't know what that looks like. I can't even begin to think about what it looks like, but it's been estimated that we are only capable of actually being aware of 1/2 of 1/1,000,000% of the information that's out there. Now, you all know about the car. I've just recently got a car here in Dubai, and it's a white car. And I can't believe the number of white cars that are on the road, and I've done this time and time and time again. So you all know that when you're thinking about something is when you start to notice it. And you can be thinking about anything and you'll start to notice it. So we now know that there's massive amounts of information out there that we are deleting, distorting, generalising. And your metamorph questions help retrieve the information that's right for you. Now, you know this, you've all done this, you've all done your Chinese whispers, you're passing the message, whatever you want to call it. I actually delivered a presentation last night to some senior doctors, and again, they loved this. They couldn't believe how much information was actually missed out. So you will notice, again, I spoke about this a few minutes ago, about the transderivational search. And you track this by watching eye access cues. So you'll see when someone's tracking, if they're looking up, they're tracking visually. If they're looking side to side, it's auditory. And if they're looking down to the right, they're in their feelings. If they're down to the left, what's that one? Just type one if you know it. What happens when someone's looking down and to the left? Thanks, Annette. It was the yakety yak, it's talking to themselves. So what can be really, really fascinating when you're working with someone is you can actually say to them, you can, with using the eye access cues, and if you see someone looking up and then they look down to the right and down to the left, so you can say, so how does that look? And how does it make you feel? And what do you really, you know, what do you say to yourself about that? That's only with eye access cues. So again, there's so many other things you can be doing apart from just asking specific questions when you're working with someone. That was just a wee extra there. So this masterclass covers the deletions and generalisations. I wanted to give you this. This is Bandler and Grinder's description of deletion. I haven't actually brought this into any of the classes. This is just an extra piece of information. And I'll just read it out. So deletion is a process by which we selectively pay attention to certain dimensions of experience and exclude others. So we're being selective at what we pay attention to. Now, every single person has been in a situation where you've thought that situation, it could have been a job, it could have been a relationship, it could have just, you know, out somewhere with, it could be how you know some person. And you have some, you're just paying attention to certain things in that situation that almost, so you can be in a job and you can be thinking, you sort of know it's not really the right job for you, but you're selectively paying attention to all things that do fit with you. And then things can change and you can suddenly go, actually, this is not for me, because you start to pay attention to other things. Take, for example, the ability that people have to filter out or exclude all other sound in a room full of people talking in order to listen to one particular person's voice. So we have got the ability to filter out, to turn down sound and just focus into one voice. It's quite incredible what we're actually able to do in the way we selectively choose to take in information. Deletion reduces the world to the proportions that we feel capable of handling. I quite like that particular sentence. And this reduction may be useful in some contexts, and it can be a source of pain in others. So someone can actually, again, in a working environment, someone can have deleted so much information that they really believe they've got no choice, there's no opportunity, there's no place for them to go in their job, there's no way they can get to talk to customers. I mean, the list is endless. So it's fascinating when you listen to people deleting and understand that this is actually giving you an indication of what they feel capable of handling. Okay, simple deletion, simple as that. A lot of information is left out. Examples, well, I know. The number of people that just say, well, I know. What exactly do you know? So how I've done this today, we've actually got the examples on the left, and then after the hyphen, the questions, the type of questions you would use to really to get the information. So I know, stop it. I just wish they would stop it. And very often you'll hear people say, yeah, so they should stop it. But nobody's actually identified stop what specifically. I wonder, could you help me here? Help you to do what? It's great. It's great. What specifically is great? So these are slightly different examples to the ones that you've had previously. So what I'd like you to do now is write down your own examples and just post them in the chat box. So I want you just to if you can come up with some of your own examples of a simple deletion, and then I'd like you to also type in how you would challenge that. Fantastic, Ram, okay. I agree, I'm afraid. Okay, so Ram, how would you challenge that one? Okay. It's done. Fantastic, Abhishek. It's done. What specifically is done? What are you afraid of? I'm afraid. Fantastic. So what are you afraid of? I know about American Express. Would you mind if I asked what exactly do you know about American Express? Fantastic. And I know about American Express. Again, that's a nice example. Was there? That's just the type of things that people will give you simple deletions when they're talking about companies. They're talking about situations. I know the contract. I know the contract. There's loads there. Earl, I'm fine. What exactly are you fine about? I would be a wee bit careful with that one because you're looking to challenge, yes, it's a simple deletion, but you're looking to challenge deletions when there's a little bit of a problem. So I'd like you to see if you can come up with another one of something that you can, because if someone's fine, I'll let me give you the example there. I understand. That would one where you would really, if you were teaching someone, I understand, because I know you're a trainer, I understand. What specifically do you understand? Okay. I don't like this thing that sits in it. Okay, what specifically do you mean about this thing? Again, in there, I would, rather than what do you mean, just say, what is this thing? What specifically is the thing? I don't know. Okay, shit. What is it you don't know? Fantastic. And again, I don't know is a really interesting one because I always like to add to I know it is a simple deletion, but I like to have in my head, this is something you don't actually say it to someone. Well, actually, I say yet to people. I don't know, and I will say to them yet. But the reason I'll say yet is because I have in my head, I don't know is normally, I don't know, I haven't had the time to work it out. So again, that's a great one. I don't know. What is it you don't know? Sometimes you can just challenge that by just saying the word yet. I don't know yet. But lovely. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving these examples. I want my life to be different. What is it about your life that you would like to be different? That is another one, Annette, we're going to move into. We're actually going to move it, and I just want you to hold that one. Simple deletion, you're actually looking at very, very short statements that people say. What Annette has actually put in here is fantastic, because this takes us into the next one, and it's the comparative deletion. I want my life to be different. Different compared to what? Now, Annette, you were right. Just saying I want my life to be different, yes, there's loads of information left out. But an even more elegant way to challenge that is who or what are you comparing to? Because different is a comparison. And this is where these masterclasses help you. You can go back and you can practice this and practice and hear it again and again and again, because there's, my pleasure, there's subtle differences. Every single statement, every single piece of language that people say can be challenged very often by the whole of the meta model, by every single part of the meta model. The power in using the meta model really, really elegantly is really picking up in what's the strongest meta model question to use. So examples, who or what are you comparing to? And again, a comparison deletion is really an interesting thing to pick up, because it will give you information about what is happening inside of someone in their beliefs. It is very often an indicator to confidence. So this is complicated. Complicated compared to what? Again, people will start comparing things that are new. So it can be very useful in business if someone is coming out with things, well, this is complicated compared to what? Compared to the last system I've been using for the last 20 years. How long have you been using this system for? A week. Okay, was your other system complicated when you started? Yes, because complicated, even the word complicated, is when you break that down, the presupposition of that word is there's a lot of components to it. There's a lot of things to learn. So by finding out in something that complicated compared to what, you often find that particular type of comparison is because someone is learning something new. So this would be a case of helping someone build up their confidence, bring their attention to the fact that other things were complicated when they started, and practice. The more they practice something, the less complicated it becomes and the easier it becomes. Again, this system's less effective than what system? This way is better. The number of people that say, oh, no, don't do it this way is better. Better than what way? I'm no good at this. Now, can you hear that? It's a huge belief statement. Remember the chart with the values, beliefs, strategy, and environment. This is the one that comes from Robert Dilks. So when you're working with comparative deletions, especially ones like this, you're very much here in beliefs. So I'm no good at this compared to whom? And again, this happens so often in business, where people will compare themselves to people who have been doing a job for many years. They'll compare themselves to the experts, and they'll compare themselves quite unfavorably. So it's very, very useful to, and those of you who've trained with me understand that when we're bringing in comparisons, we only ever talk about who you compare only to yourself, of where you started to where you are now. You can never compare yourself to someone else and do that fairly. So when someone's really comparing with someone else, that can be an aspiration, but also it can be very negative for someone. So it's always interesting to bring out, okay, but so compared to them, they've been doing that job for ages. There's other things that you do really well, and other people will probably be comparing themselves to you. So you just focus the person on, when you start working with the comparative deletion, it really helps you understand the beliefs. So let's have some examples from yourself. So let's have some comparative deletions here. My business is more profitable now. Fantastic, Annette, compared to when? And that's a beautiful business coaching question, because it helps someone look at that they're comparing where they are now to where they were before, how the figures are stacking up this year compared to last year. We are better off. I would say better off than, that's an interesting one, Ram, because that can be better off than who, or better off than what. So that, what you've written there, you would have to have that in context to know whether it's a who you're comparing to or a what you were comparing to. So when you were thinking about that one, you've written then who, so you were thinking of someone else, another person or people in that. Am I correct in saying that? Yeah, okay. And you can see in that statement, we are better off. You would maybe want to challenge a little bit more. So that one you would challenge than who or than what. I've always done it this way. That is going on to another pattern, chicks, that, let me see, the other pattern coming out more for me in that one, but let me just have a look. I've always done it this way. Yeah, you could, yeah, this, okay, no, it's fine, because very often you can have a statement that can be challenged by 2 or 3 different patterns. So I've always done it this way, compared to what? But that's really the one that you've actually put here is more, no, actually it's fine. I've just, no, I've always done it this way, it's comparison. That's fine. So how would you challenge that, chicks? Just type in your challenge. I've always done it this way. Abhishek, this is easier and quicker. Yeah, easier and quicker. And what? Is there? I like this team better. Love it. I like this team better. Compared to what team? Compared to that other horrible nasty team. Okay. What have it now? What? Let me just go back to what you've written there, chicks, to start with. So you've put in, originally you put in, I've always done it this way. What have you always done? So you're still, that's what you're doing there, is you're still retrieving the information about the thing. What have you always done? So you're actually wanting to retrieve the thing there. I would, if you're doing the comparative deletion, how you would do this, and I want you to write this down. Let's just go up to here. I've always done it this way. Compared to what way? Because it could be someone else does this thing, and we don't know what the thing is. So you can see there, there's other things to be challenged there. You've got to find out what it is they're talking about. What specifically are they talking about? But the challenge there in the comparison, it could be someone else does it another way could be better. Okay. Any more questions? That just put yes if you're. Are you learning from this? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jude. Brilliant. Because I'm giving you, I'm doing the masterclasses, is I'm giving you different the different examples, and I really want to just keep, rather than referring back to the other language patterns, I want to just keep with what we have here. I just want to keep with the deletion. So when I say there's another language pattern, if you want to go and figure out what one it is later on, that's fine. But I want to keep very much just with the deletions and generalizations today. Okay, so next one. The lack of referential index. Who or what is being referred to? This happens often. So can you see, chicks, this is the one that now jumps in, where you can figure out who or what, so it's been deleted. The person or the situation or the thing has actually been deleted. So the examples, this happens often. What specifically happens often? They said the contract, and who said the contract will be signed? Now, how often have you heard that in business, especially those of you who are involved in sales? You hear things like, yeah, contract will be signed. They said it'll be signed, they said it'll be fine, they said we'll get this order by the end of the month. Who said? Is it the person that has the authority to sign the contract or someone else? So you can see where lack of referential index is really important in business to find out who or what is being referred to. They just need guidance. Who specifically needs guidance? Again, this actually is a little bit of a generalisation at all, just being they, everyone needs it, but in this point there's a they here, so this brings it into lack of referential index because there's actually the word they. Who specifically are they? And again, in business, this can be really interesting because people, when they're overwhelmed, will start to just come out with very unspecific statements. The number of times I've heard things like this in business, and they actually turns out to be one person. But until that's challenged, you don't know. That laptop is perfect. What laptop's perfect? There might be 20 different types of laptops in the company. So again, it's you can see the laptop, but you want to know which specific laptop is perfect. Okay, so once more, if you can write down your own examples. Now I've got some water here, you'll be slurping a drink. Make sure you're hydrated when you come onto these classes because there's a lot, you're doing a lot of work. So let me see, Annette, what have you put here? Annette, they said the responsibility for the project task has already been assigned. Oh, fantastic. And you've heard that many times, Annette, I know, with the business you're doing at the moment. Who specifically has it been assigned to? Yeah, I've heard this often, and then found the person who's been assigned to didn't even know. That's actually been happening with me recently as well. I'm coming across a lot of situations where people are saying things have been assigned, things have been set, and there's been a small lack of communication, and it's not actually, the person hasn't known about it. Ram, just do it. Okay, how would you challenge that? The it is the lack of referential index, but that actually also fits in, as you can see, into simple deletion as well. Just do it. So you're looking to find out the it in there. Yeah, fantastic, Azir. You always do that. And again, you can hear people saying that. You can hear it being said to yourself. You always do that. So I do. Rather than saying, you always do what? I always do what specifically? They're responsible for this system. Yes, again, who specifically is responsible? Well, they're good at the job. Who exactly is at this job? And in that one, you've got two there because you can challenge which job. So you've got the they in there. In fact, this is interesting because look at what else was put there and how that can be challenged. So they're good compared to what? So there's actually a comparative deletion in there as well. So who specifically are they? They are good. The comparison compared to what? at doing the job. What specific job? So again, if you're using the meta model badly, you would be absolutely driving people nuts and challenging everything that's said. But in that one, you can see it's they. They're good at doing the job. So who specifically is good at doing the job? So although there's more challenges in there, always go for the one that will make the biggest chunk, the biggest change first. Annette's written here, the event planning is really going well for the conference. What steps have already been taken and what has yet to be done? Let me just read that again. The event planning is really going well for the conference. That you've jumped on, Annette, to the next one, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine, because this is moving on to the unspecified verb, because you're looking at the steps. You're wanting to know what's being done. But again, with the lack of referential, you can see that it's the event planning is going really well for the conference. Again, look at how we can challenge that, going really well, compared to what? Who is doing the event planning? So there's information deleted there that we need to have to really find out more. But this will fit in. That's fabulous, isn't it? This fits into the next one, which takes us into the unspecified verb. So, you all fine on that one? Just give me a yes with an exclamation mark. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Okay. So the unspecified verb, there you go, Annette. How is something being done? Now, you know the story I gave with Duncan, that when I really got this clear in my head, and this takes time. This is why I'm doing these masterclasses, and this is why I want you to go back to these recordings, because once you've got this link, you can go back to this recording as often as you want and break it down and break it down and break it down and write out the different language patterns until you get them. It took me years to get an unspecified verb example that absolutely fitted with me in business. And that's the one of when I was with Duncan, my husband, at Mumbai, and it was 6 weeks before the monsoon. And he was in charge, general manager of a great big company in India, and he was in charge of Mumbai Airport for the outside, the facade of Mumbai airports. So his responsibility was to get the building watertight. And I heard someone was on the phone, the project manager was on the phone, and I heard him say, "How are you going to do that on the phone?" And suddenly I went, wonderful, an unspecified verb example that fits exactly with business. Because he had to know how that job was going to be done. Because the monetary value in that was massive. Because they had to have the place watertight before the monsoon to allow the internal fit-in guys to get in and get on with their job. If these guys had been held up, it was a very, very substantial in the millions per day. So that was one that made me think, now hang on, the unspecified verb is such an important thing to really, from what's been deleted. And the example you gave there, Annette, is absolutely incredible because, again, when the event planning is going really well for the conference, people will tell you that. Then you get 2 days before the conference and you find out half the things haven't been done unless you have asked these type of questions. So I have calmed the situation. How did you calm the situation? Because people can say this, and if you're not there now, again, if you know someone really well and you know how they work, if you know how they do something, that's not the right person to be challenging an unspecified verb. There may be occasions, but it's not something that you really have to go in and challenge a lot. Once you've got trust with someone and you know they know how to do their stuff and they pay attention to detail, that's cool. But if you've got something that this could be a CEO, managing director, and one of your managers said, I've calmed the situation. They could have a perception that they've calmed the situation. And it could be interesting for you to find out, well, how did you actually calm them? How did you do that? And it may, they could have done something, just go, oh no, that's going to cause problems later on. So again, situations like that, the way something is being done has been left out. He will hit his objective. Now, if this is someone who never hits objectives and their team leader's busy, oh yes, he'll hit his objectives. Sometimes you've got to push the team leader into, well, that's all right, well, you've been saying that before, but you want to say it again and get the details, the information. He's running the department badly. Now, I like this particular example because there's a little bit of judgment in there. And you can also challenge this with according to whom. So you can see there's two ways you can challenge that. He's running the department badly. I put it in, although it jumped out to me as an example of, oh, lost performance, according to whom. It's important to sometimes get, how is he running the department badly? So how's he running the department? So again, it's getting that information. She's given it a good shot. How is she giving it a good shot? Again, this can happen in sales situations. I've had this particular statement said lots of times. Oh, they've given it a good shot. The team's really given it a good shot. And when you break it down, they've not been doing anything extra. They haven't gone that extra mile. They haven't pulled out all the stops. They haven't had that extra push, drive, or energy that really makes people outstanding. Outstanding people will always go the extra mile. They'll always give something a good shot. And this could be an example. You could actually find out if someone has. And in that case, that could be, they could have done something so spectacular, that could be a situation being brought to your attention that someone could be rewarded for this. Or it could be that they think they have, or the team leader thinks they have, but they don't. And again, because the information is deleted, we don't know. So write down your examples. A couple of examples each this time for this one. And again, it's writing down the examples, it's actually coming up with your own stuff that helps you get really, really elegant and really slick at the use of the meta model. The more you can write that down. Okay. I've completed the task. Complete the task. Fantastic. And the project milestones are on track. In that one, Annette, the project milestones are on track. Are all milestones green according to plan? Careful with that, because that answer can just be yes. You've actually, so which project milestones are on track? I would tend to ask, because if you ask a question, that's a little bit of what's known as a closed question. Are all milestones being according to plan? Yes. Someone could say yes and then run away and make sure they were the next time you went in. They're on target. They're on target. How will they achieve their target? Again, was there with that one, they're on target. Where are they on their target? Rather than how will they achieve? Can you see that's forward? That's actually there's a modal operator in there, and it can that type of challenge. You can they'll just do it. They'll be fine. It's not actually pinning something down. So the unspecified verb, they are on target. How are they? What are they doing to achieve their target? So what you're looking for here is asking the question to find out how they're going to do, how they're actually doing how they're doing it. Abhishek, the team. Sorry, let me just go down again. Abhishek, one there that I missed. The team will reach target by Sunday. Yeah, how do we? The team know what they're doing. How do they know what they're doing? Now, chicks, again with that, when the team know what they're doing, how do they know what they're doing? Listen to even that question. Leaves everything really open. The team know what they are doing. So what are they doing? Because the doing is what you're actually challenging. So what specifically are they doing? If that makes sense, just give me a yes, or if you want me to re-explain it again, just say help, or can you say again? So the team, okay, that's fine. Because again, the thing about, I know you haven't gone through the full training with us, chicks, so that's why I've just wanted to bring your attention to that. But it's when you're actually specified doing word that you're actually challenging. So was there, how are they on target? Yeah. What are they doing? What are they doing to get on target? What are they doing? This is Zane I'm talking with now. Year one, they're on target. They're on target. What are they doing to achieve their target? What specifically? So I was saying that when I would look for a specific, I'm wanting a what specifically. How are they on target? Is, well, it could be, I suppose even how you could get figures. So yes, that could work. But again, it's really pinning them down so that you have to get the answer as to specifically how they're doing something. Annette, I have a good relationship with my business stakeholders. What shows you that you have a good relationship? I would just say, how are you doing that? That's one there. I would say, how are you doing that? So what shows you? So again, it's the relationship. Now, is a relationship a verb? No, it's not. So it's the good relationship. So where's the doing in that? I want you just to think about that again. I have a good relationship with my... Because a relationship can be a verb. It can be a nominalization. So again, a lot of what we do here is when it's in context, you'll see the change. But remember, with the unspecified verb, yeah, I'm just going back to Earl. I've completed the task. How did you complete the task? Brilliant. We will get through again, Ram. How will we get through? And again, people say that, we will get through. So how specifically will we get through? Could be, what do you mean by good, but you're going back into comparison there. What I would like you to do with that one, Annette, really ask yourself, would that be a statement that you would challenge with an unspecified verb? Because again, remember, thank you, because not all statements, although they may have the language pattern in there, can be challenged. And challenge, shall we say, sorry, they can all be challenged, but to challenge effectively. If someone says to me, I have a good relationship with my business stakeholders, I would go, oh, great, fantastic. And I'd be asking other questions to maybe find out. So how do you do that? Tell me a wee bit more about how you actually do that. So can you see with the unspecified verb, and this is maybe giving you an example of how this was why it took me a long time with this one, but we've got it now. And the minute I get something, the minute you get something, all other options start to open up. Okay. So let's go on to the next part here. The deletion language patterns of the NLP meta model are the simple deletion, the comparative deletion, the lack of referential index, that's the who or what, and the unspecified verb, how is it being done? Do you now have a better understanding, building on the previous understanding, which are all at different levels, of the deletions? Thank you, Abhishek. Yeah, we're getting 3 exclamation marks. And I know Annette's nose to the previous question. Yeah, no matter how long I've been learning, I keep on learning. You're right, Annette. I'm still learning. I was actually, it's really interesting, because when I was putting this presentation together, I said, right, I want you, I've got to find for myself new examples. And I started doing a little bit of research on the internet to look and see what else was out there, because go and have a look. Thank you all for saying yes. Go and have a look at other people's examples. And I came across examples and I'm going, no, that doesn't fit, that should be there. So there's lots of wrong examples out on the internet, but there's lots of right examples, and then there's your own examples, the ones that you come across specifically in business. So this is why it's important to write them down, because you'll keep learning, you'll keep refining. The meta model is a tool that keeps becoming refined. And you'll get to the stage that things will jump out and you'll go, whoa, if I challenge that particular language pattern, I'm going to get the biggest shift with the person I'm working with. Okay, fantastic. Everyone happy to move on to the next part, the generalizations? Yes. Do you need to stop? Does anyone need a break? Because we've been here nearly 50 minutes. Or we'll just keep going, because there's not too much to do with generalizations. We'll probably be, let me see, about another 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, fantastic. So, next part. Bandler and Binder's description of generalization. Generalization is the process by which elements or pieces of a person's model become detached from their original experience and come to represent the entire category of which the experience is an example. Our ability to generalize is essential in coping with the world. The same process of generalization may lead a human being to establish a rule such as don't express any feelings. So what they're saying here is that we become so split off, detached from the experience, and delete so much. We just sort of generalize so much information that we actually think the thing we're thinking about is it, that was it. And the example of that is, I never get to speak to anyone. That becomes someone's belief at that point of time. So the generalization is when, and think about it, we have to generalize. The example we use on training is a door. Everyone knows what a door looks like, don't you? Give me a yes. Do all doors look the same? No. So and especially when you go into some of these, I mean, you all know that I'm here in Dubai. Some of the buildings I go into, I mean, it's Glass Tower City here, and you go and go, you know, you're walking up and saying, there's a door here somewhere. I know, because I can see people on the other side, and this is leading me towards something. But it's so different from any other door you've ever seen before, but your brain has generalized there has to be a door. The one I love now is generalisation, is going into restrooms or toilets, for want of a better word, in all sorts of places now. You go to wash your hand in the sink. You know it's the sink, you know there's a tap, and you know water comes out of it. So you've generalised that much. You've then got to take yourself through the training to find out how it actually works. Because I don't know when that part of the world started to become complicated, but all of a sudden there's so much design around taps and sinks now that you don't know if you put your hand to automatic or if you press a button on the floor or whatever, but you've generalised, you know what it is. So you may have to figure out how to work that particular tap, but you know there's water will come out of that. So if we didn't generalise, we would have to actually take time with everything we did and then work out from scratch what it was and what it was for. Where we're working here in generalisation is when people overgeneralise. So the first generalisation here is the universal quantifier, the all or nothing. Nothing works in this office. Now you can challenge this by going, nothing works. But be careful. And again, those of you who have trained with me recently will know that I've started bringing in slightly different ways of training in this particular universal quantifier. It used to be, we just used to challenge, no, nobody's talking to me, nobody. But very often when people are generalising, especially if they haven't been doing so previously, they're actually overwhelmed. And what is happening is because everything is overwhelmed for them, everything's overwhelming, they are unable to prioritise. This can happen when someone is going through a family crisis, a personal crisis, a business crisis. You know, at times life doesn't go smooth. At times life throws us some rubbish. And at these times we become incredibly, you know, just everything seems the same. There's no big problem or small problems. It's all huge. So you have to be careful when you're challenging this, especially as I said previously, with someone who wasn't generalising, wasn't using lots of universal quantifiers previously. So nobody gives out prices. There is no company that gives out prices. There is no company that gives out prices. You'll hear this, people, oh, nobody gives it. And again, I'm doing this from a sales perspective on that particular question, because very often salespeople are asked to go and find out prices of the competitors. And I hear this a lot, where they say, oh, nobody gives out prices. Companies do give out prices. You've got to find out how they do it. All you're looking for here is you're helping someone understand it's not every company that doesn't do that. You're looking for the exception so that that person understands not every single company will do that particular way. Everybody is struggling to sell. This happens so often in business. Everybody's struggling to sell. Nobody's buying at the moment. So there's not one person selling. There's not one person buying. Because what you're wanting to do is help that person understand this is a lot to do with their attitude, especially in business. So if they're saying everyone is struggling to sell, and they're having that reinforced maybe by some of their other colleagues, very soon you can have a business situation where nobody's selling anything because they all believe nobody's buying, which is rubbish. So this is all to do with perception, it's to do with attitude, and again, especially with universal quantifiers, you're helping someone understand that it could be the way they're approaching something. But you're doing this in quite a gentle way. I had an example where we were working with, it was a senior management team. And one person in the room, now this was an in-house training, one person in the room of the senior managers said, nobody can get the budgets in time, the budget reports in time. And I looked very quickly, as he said it, I used my peripheral vision and I clocked everyone's face around the room. Every single one of these managers had to produce a budget report. And the non-verbals I was getting from everyone was that wasn't true. So what I had to do in that situation was actually to ask everyone in the room, do you produce your budget in time? Yep. Do you produce your budget in time? Yep. Do you produce your budget in time? Yep. So then help the person. Now this was senior leaders we were working with. It was part of a board. So it was appropriate to challenge it in that way with everyone. So then what we had to do, the person who said, no one gets their budget done in time, I had then to work with coaching him to pair him up with other people to look at some of the different ways people were managing to do it. So it moved into a strategy, into a little bit of training on how it could be done, because he was actually believing it could never be done. And having proof from his fellow directors that it could be done made him realise, hang on, that's what's got to change. And he was fine about it. But again, you've got to be careful when you're doing this. You don't want to make people feel stupid. You don't want to make people feel overwhelmed when they're already overwhelmed. Everything is confusing. Now, confusion comes before understanding. People when they're learning stuff become really, really, really confused. And that's when they're overwhelmed. And you can hear this. This is the type of scenario when you get, oh, it's all just confusing. I can't get it. I'm all over the place. So in that situation, you're helping someone break things down. Is there not one thing you're clear about? It may be no. So then you have to break it down, because remember, if you're training someone, the response you get is all to do with how you have actually been communicating with them. So you may have to break it down and then go, right, okay, let's go back and break this down so we can take you step by step so you become really clear. Or they could say, is there not one thing you're clear about? You could turn around and say, well, actually, yes, I'm clear about that. Okay, fantastic. So you see, you're starting to chunk down from this absolute generalization, the overwhelm, everything, and you're breaking down bit by bit. So fantastic. You've got that bit. You've got that bit. You've got that bit. So really, there's only these two bits that you've not got yet. So let's go back. So you can see when you hear a universal quantifier, when you challenge it, you very, very quickly help someone to become aware of how much maybe they do know, but they're just, because they're, it's too much, they're not actually looking at. So write down your own example if you can get a couple. And I want you to challenge, right? Okay, all senior managers are reliable. Is there not one manager you can think of as reliable? Fantastic. Nobody's achieving the target. Again, careful that Earl. I want to come up with another one. Of course you can challenge that, but see if you can come up and see with another actual challenge there. No one cares. No one. Again, the same with your RAM. You can challenge just by saying what someone said, but for this particular exercise, I want you to actually come up with a situation where someone has got to agree that no, it's not no one. There is something. Is there? You never do that, never, or you always do that, always. Again, is there? Can't see. Yeah, fantastic. You've all come up with, except Annette came up with a different one. You've all come up with a never, always, and again, tone of voice. But what I'd like you to do now is really come up with a different way of challenging. So no one cares. So may I ask, is there not one specific person who has ever cared? Because remember, people can be very often overwhelmed. Okay. She's always late. She's always late. I would say, has there ever been a time when she wasn't late? She's always late. Has there ever, rather than never, has there ever been a time? Has there ever been a time when she wasn't late? Have you never had an experience of being cared for? Yeah. Yeah, perfect, Grandma. Number sheet. Students are only concerned about their grades. Isn't there even one other thing we can think of as important? Students are only concerned about their grades. I would challenge that at all students. Yeah. Are all students only? Yeah. Are all students only concerned about their grades? Yeah, that's the way. That's perfect. Now, I'm always blamed when things go wrong. Again, always blamed. Can you hear the tone just by going back to that? I'm always blamed when things were wrong. See if you can challenge that. See if you can challenge it in a slightly different way, Earl. I'll give you an example, but after you've challenged it yourself. And with that one, I would say, is every student only concerned about their grades? So rather, you see, you've actually given a generalisation with are all. Is every student only concerned about their grade? Are you sure you're always blamed now? What, you're still keeping in the blamed? Okay, I'm always blamed when things wrong. Has there never been a time when you haven't been blamed? Can you hear the difference? Are you sure you're always blamed? If someone is overwhelmed, they'll just say yes to that. Yes, I'm always blamed. I'm always blamed when things go wrong. Yes, I'm always blamed. So you can change that. Has there never been a time when you weren't blamed? Because with that statement, that person is connecting themselves to being victim. It's not only that it sounds better, Earl, it gets a different response. That's the difference. It's giving a different response, because what you're doing here, sorry, I've gone on to the next slide. What you're actually doing here with the universal quantifier is you're helping that person actually clarify that this isn't happening all the time. So I'm always blamed when things go wrong. Even that statement, can you feel, and again, this is presuppositions that we'll go into later, can you hear what's actually in behind that, in the deep structure that's not being said? So has there ever been a time you've not been blamed when things go wrong? They're linking themselves to, not me, I always get blamed. And you want to get them out of that way of thinking. Yeah, just let me know if that explanation has been okay for you. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so is everyone happy with universal quantifiers? And again, even coming up with the examples, it's very easy to go nothing off, but nothing. It's very, very easy to do that. It's far more elegant when you can actually very, very gently, very positively, very confidently help someone to understand it's not everything that's happening. It's actually only in their world. That's really what this is about. It's only happening in their world. But you don't want to be saying that. You want to, because you're far more elegant in your use of language than that. Okay, modal operators, and I've decided to do this slightly different to the way that you've learned about modal operators before. One of the things I wanted to share with you in this class is I get amazed, and those of you who do your master and who have done your master, you'll start to see and hear in conversations how the modal operators absolutely impact on the results. So a modal operator, this is the description I've got for you for modal operator. Words that require particular action and imply no choice. And that's the lovely thing about modal operator. When people are using a modal operator, they actually feel as if there's no choice. So some of the examples here: I must get promoted this year. According to what criteria? Now, for some of you, this will be the, what do you mean by disempowers, Ram? Just, you put disempowers, what do you, I know you put it as a question, but disempowers what? Just if you can clarify that a wee bit for me. Yeah, exactly. The recipient is, they can either be motivated or demotivated through perceived lack of choice. And it's actually they're perceiving that they have no choice at all. Fantastic, thanks for that. So if you say things, I can't do this, if you could do this, how would you do it? Now, all I have done there is I can't is the modal operator, and I changed it to a possibility. So the more you get used to using modal operators and hearing modal operators, I know that everyone has gone through, I don't think you've done it, Chicks, but everyone who's done the NLP business practitioner training with me, you've actually moved forward and back. You've done the physical move with modal operator. But more importantly, it's you felt how words could either pull you forward, get no movement at all, or make you step back and go, whoa, I don't want to do that. But what's important when you're working with people is listening to where the modal operators fit within the language, and just play around with firing back and changing the modal operators back. So I must get promoted this year. This is slightly different. According to what criteria? So you're questioning the must. Because you'll see people say, I must get promoted this year. We must have a turnover this year. We must do this, we must do that, must do. And they're putting huge amount of stress on themselves. And until you've questioned according to what criteria, or it could be according to whom, what you want to find out is you want to find out where this is coming from. So I don't know what you would get from that. You know, I must get promoted this year. Depending on the answer, you can then help someone become more resourceful. If I must get promoted this year, it's not making them, you know, that's making them really stressed. Then just by challenging the must in this situation, the must do this, you can challenge it. I can't do this. If you could do this, how would it work for you? So what I have done there is just, we've also, this is, you all know this, it's a sneaky conversational question, but the could is you're just throwing in, they leave the can't to the right. The could is the possibility. So we've put in a modal operator possibility there just to open up options. I should work smarter, because you'll hear people say, well, I should do this, well, I could do this, well, maybe I might do that. And you can hear, especially if they're stacked one after the other, you know that they're not going to be doing that. So if someone's saying, I should work smarter, so how can you work smarter? So I have changed a modal operator there of possibility into a modal operator of necessity. How can you work smarter? You can play with this. It's fabulous to just play around and, you know, put in, if someone's really coming out with a modal operator of necessity, put one of possibility in and just notice the change, because the actual behaviour will change with the modal operators, because the modal operators are, they're giving the action to what's going to happen. I could maybe call more clients. Now I've heard this so often. Yes, so how can we help you get more appointments. Well, I could maybe call more appointments. How will you call more appointments? So straight away, just by changing the modal operator there, you're taking them to an action. Rather than talk about maybe could, should, could, possibilities, the dreaming, you're taking them just by shifting the modal operator straight into action. So how will you call more clients? And then I would have someone on that, an action plan. So let's look at your action plan. Let's look at your diary. And at that point, you're moving into strategy. You're moving into the how-to. Remember the values, beliefs, strategy, environment. You're moving actually into the strategy with that. So this is slightly different to the way you have done modal operators previously. So I'd like you to come up with a couple of examples of a not very resourceful use of a modal operator and challenge that by changing the modal operator back. Again, those of you who've gone to master and up to coach level, you've already done this in strategies. You've actually changed strategies just by changing the modal operator. So this is exactly the same. All we're doing here is just changing. So Annette, I should develop myself to improve my business. How can you develop yourself to achieve your business improvements? Fantastic. That's a beautiful, beautiful coaching intervention there. And you will hear this. I should develop myself to improve my business. So straight away, Annette has taken complete control. How can you develop yourself to achieve your business improvements? And she's actually taken the nominalization, and you've made action. You've said improvement, and you've made achieve your business improvements. So you've got some action in there, which is fantastic. Uzair, I must reach my target sales this year. How do you plan to reach your target sales? So let's see, how do you plan? Rather than how do you plan is there is just, it's too much of a general question. You're looking for changing the modal operator. So the modal operator there is the must. I would put in there, let me see, let me just go back to that again. I must reach my sales targets this year. So how could you reach your sales? I wouldn't put the plan in there. I would just say conversationally, so how could you reach your targets this year? And then you go into the plan later. Because again, remember, this is conversational. And when you're replying and using the meta model in conversation, people are getting conversational shifts. So I would leave the plan out of that point of time. I must reach my sales targets this year. So how could you reach your sales target? So again, you're giving someone back what they've said to them, and all you've done is change the modal operator. Fran, as a coach, let me see that one. Sorry, I'm having to move here to just get details. As a coach, you must listen. Okay? As a coach, you must listen. And you've put here, a coach inspires through active listening. So where's the modal operator changed? Remember, this is an exercise on modal operator changes, right? So see if you can change that. All you've done here is as a coach must listen, a coach inspires through active listening. You've given another statement, but you haven't challenged in that point. You must, because you could be teaching someone to be a coach and say, as a coach, you must listen. And someone goes, must? I don't must do anything. So see how you can change that with another modal operator to get a difference. Okay, chicks. I need to achieve X turnover this year. What needs to happen to achieve the turnover? The need and the need are the modal operators. And again, you haven't done this, chicks. So I need to achieve X turnover this year. That's the one to say according to what criteria. I would challenge that with according to what criteria, and depending on what the answer was to that, I would then go on to say, so what's your plan? I would really just challenge that with what's the criteria. I would need to, what you're wanting to find is whose need is this to achieve a turnover? Its need is the word that you're actually wanting to challenge. Is that clear for you? Just give me a wee yes or no. And while Chick's doing that, Earl, I must work on my closing techniques. What do you plan to do differently when closing? Again, you've just given what do you plan? I must work on. Okay, so rather than what you plan to do, because see, you're giving a challenge, what do you plan to do differently? Just by changing the modal operator, that's all we're doing here, is changing the modal operator. I must work on closing my techniques. So how can you work on closing your techniques? See how that's different to what you plan to do differently. So you're working with what someone has said. And remember, it's the generalization. I must work on my closing techniques. So how can you work on your closing techniques? They've got to then give you information. I know it seems similar, but trust me that when you start hearing modal operators and just challenge the modal operator, it's incredible what starts to happen. I need to change my life. Let's see the next. I need to change my life. Oh, fantastic. Again, I need to change my life. How much do you want to change your life? So again, it's what Annette has done there. She's taken it from a need to a want. Would a coach be able to inspire? Let's go back to that button. Just go back up. As a coach, you must listen. As a coach, you can listen. As a coach, you should listen. As a coach, you could listen. Now you can see this is out of context. So I can't say what's the best way to challenge that because it's in total context. So I don't want you to fill that in here, Ram, but I want you to think, if you made that statement, where would you use that? Remember, I'm picking up, this is something you're saying to someone. That's not where you would challenge a modal operator. You're challenging a modal operator when someone is saying something to you. So it's someone saying something. I may be wrong, but that's I know you teach and coaching, and I just want you to think of what would someone say to you. So is there, I must reach, how do you plan? Okay, again, you just said that. So how could you reach your, I have to complete my project, Abhishek. I have to complete my project by tomorrow. How could you complete this project by tomorrow? Yeah. Okay, fine, shall I get it? It's my own statement that I'd like to change. Yes. Oh, great, Ram. So you understand when you, so it, and again, and I'll just go on with what Ram's just said there. When you're making your own statements to people, you've got to be, there you go, love it, that was my modal operator jumped out there. You've got to be careful of the modal operator you use. So if you say got, someone goes, I don't like it, who's got to, or if you say need or you must, people could actually, you know, they could feel uncomfortable with that. So it could, the way I go around it, I say, you know, you must, you should, you could, you maybe, you ought to. Sometimes I'll throw in 4 or 5 modal operators in a statement when I'm teaching. When I'm having normal conversation, no, I just work with what comes out naturally. But when I'm teaching, sometimes I use 2 or 3 different modal operators. Okay, so is modal operators now clear? When are modal operators ever useful? Oh, Annette's lost her Wi-Fi. It's okay, Annette, we'll get you back. We'll get a recording of this. I presume you're back. You're saying when are modal operators ever useful, Ram? Modal operators will tell you what's going on in someone's inside world. So, for example, if you're coaching someone and they're saying to you, yeah, that's fine, I could get that done by next week, and I should be doing this. So in our own language, in our own usage, your modal operators are what actually motivates you. Has that answered your question? I know Ram's he's actually said now in our own language, our own usage. Everyone has. So Ram has asked a question about modal operators being useful. The modal operators will let you hear from others how they plan to do something. So you will hear their motivation, you will hear their determination or lack of in others. And I do urge you to go and actually listen out for modal operators, because they are the most incredible indicator of whether someone's going to take action or not. And as a coach, that is vital. You know your clients are actually going to take action. Okay, so Annette's back, fantastic. So modal operators, because I want to move on, but right, okay, Uzair's come up. The word must shows a no options approach. The words, let me just read this out for you again, because I know in the recording you can't see these don't move. Okay, so Uzair, the word must shows a no options approach. The words I could indicate thoughts without actions, and as a coach, we should move them towards action. It's interesting, Uzair, there's no right or wrong modal operator. And with practice, you will start to understand that. Some people are highly motivated by should and could. So again, you're working with what your client is giving you, and then play around. Just play around, get to know your different modal operators, and start to notice what happens when you change them about. Annette's put here, this is really true, I hear it all the time at work and in my coaching. So once you start really focusing into the modal operators, you'll be amazed. You're picking up the action of people. You're picking up who's going to do something and who's not going to do something. And there's no right and wrong. You can think modal operators of possibility will mean it's just possible and people won't take action. Not always true. Remember, you're working with the inside world of your clients. So when you're working with the inside world of your clients, it's individual. It's actually working. You don't know what your client's going to give you. So is that clear? Are you clear on modal operators? Do you have more information now, more knowledge that you can go and work? Okay, thank you, Ram. Ram's yes. Is there yes? Abhishek, yeah. Earl, yeah. Chicken in it. Fantastic. So we're moving on to the final parts. And the final one of the generalization, is presuppositions. Now, the presupposition is something implicitly required in order to understand a sentence. Presuppositions are the surface structure of communication that omit or obscure the deep structure of the statements. So what I mean by that is what you're hearing when you're hearing anything that anyone says, there has to be something assumed in that statement that's not being said for the statement to make sense. So examples, best way to do this is examples. If someone says to someone, what is your problem? They're implying that this person has a problem. That person may not have a problem. So you can hear the things that are being implied that may or may not be true. Does that make sense? Give me a yes. I need exclamation marks this so it's different yeses to the last ones that you put. Once you really get very, very slick on presuppositions, you start to pick up. Okay, so I'll just repeat that for you, chicks. When people are talking to you, there's always information that they're not verbalizing that has to be there to make what they're saying true. You got that now, chicks? I'll give you some more examples. So we'll give you some more examples so we can move on with this. Investors are now starting to come back to the market. So just by saying investors are now starting to come back to the market, you're implying investors have been away from the market. It's not being said in that statement that investors have been away from the market. The only thing that we know within that statement is there are investors and there's a market. That's the only thing we know to be true. Everything else, we need to get more information to find out what does this mean? What does this statement mean? This next one, and again, this is when you start to hear judgments. You start to hear incredible things that people say. So if someone makes a statement like, you're not smart enough to do that job, what they've said is there's a job that can be done, but you can't do it. And the person who's made that statement has judged that you're not smart enough to do it. So the presuppositions, when you're working with the presuppositions, your presuppositions within generalizations, they're really what's happening there is every single statement that people make, there will be presuppositions in there. And the presuppositions are the deep structure. That's the information that has been deleted, distorted, and generalized. So what I'd like you to do now is come up with just a couple of presupposition sentences and just write what that implies. Okay, Annette, what is your confusion? And she's put in brackets, I've seen this when people may have a look of confusion in their face, but it may be just their look of concentration. Better to say, is there anything you haven't understood? Lovely. So that's a situation where someone can make it, as a trainer, you can make a statement, what is your confusion? And you're assuming someone is confused. And I believe, Ram, you're in a situation like that in your training, where you were assuming something based on, and you were actually coming out with something, and when it was actually question more, it was different. When you start coaching really well, you'll feel really good. Implies the person is not and needs to do better. Yeah. So when you start coaching really well, you will feel really good. So the presupposition in there is not really coaching well. Again, needs to be careful, needs to do better. Because needs to do better, what you've put there is a judgment in your point. It's just you have to get more practice. But just to, to do it more. Do it more. Yeah. Your marketing department will succeed when you invest in us. Presupposes that our marketing department hasn't succeeded yet. Yeah. See? I'm just looking at yours here. We are presupposing they've not. Is there a question? Sorry, Izzy, I can't get this to actually stop at your question here. It just keeps running forward here. Got it? Would it be better to say, is there? We're presupposing that they have not understood yet. And this is what I've just got what you said there, Zia. So we were presupposing that they had not understood, yes, because people presuppose all the time. And you come up with your own, so your deep structure, you've got your own assumptions about different things, and your language is just giving an edited version of that. When you're working with people using metamodel, now I want to put this into perspective at the moment. Thank you very much, Ram. Thank you for coming, and I'll make sure you get a copy of the recording. Thank you. Ram's had to go early, that's not, well, not early because we've gone an hour and a half. To put this into perspective, the presuppositions here are things that you listen to when you're working with someone. Start with that. Start listening to other people, because it can be easier to do that than actually listen to what you've said yourself. Does that make sense? Put a yes with an exclamation mark if you've got that. But just by listening, so when someone says something, you start to go, what's the meaning here? What is not being actually verbalized from this person? What's been deleted? What's been distorted? What's been generalized? I'm understanding this, but they've missed stuff out that I know they've missed out for this to make sense. So from the presuppositions, you then go into your different language patterns. And you're using all the language patterns with the meta model to then pull out the information that is been deleted, distorted, and generalized. Okay, so thank you very much. That's us. That was we've just gone about an hour and 37 minutes. So thank you very much for actually taking part in the masterclass. This will be recorded and it will be uploaded, and I will send you the link. If you've got this link, you can go on to this as often as you want. So let's just recap on the generalization. The generalization language pattern of the NLP meta model are the universal